Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now from our Abuja studios is the presidential candidate of Abundant Nigeria Renewal Party, Tokwe Fashiwa. Good morning. Welcome to the morning show. Hello, Tokwe.
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me. Yeah,
Thanks.
Good morning.
Yeah, Tokwe, it's good to see you again. How is the presidential campaign going?
Great. Thank you very much, Uncle Ruben, even though I can't see you. But it's great to be here, and the campaign is going on great. You know, we're actually in the thick of it right now.
Yes, I've seen, you know, a copy of your manifesto. This is even more detailed than the document you gave us the last time you appeared on this program. You talk about thinking out of the box. You're talking about national renewal and renaissance. What really is the substance? Because when I looked at your breakdown, it's like you are proposing a government that will try to do everything, from education to health to security to job.
Oh, well,
Did you hear me?
okay, yes. Okay, so basically I heard the part you said we're proposing a government that's coming to do everything. And indeed, that's what we should be doing right now. I mean, Nigeria is a broken society. Our economy is a collapsed economy, no matter what they tell you. So we should be looking for people who come in with a broad-based solution to across the board. You know, however, of course, there are trigger points that we're going to use in reaching the other parts of the economy and the society that we need to reach, you know. So, however, let me say that what stands me aside and apart from the crowd is that I think I've put in more thinking into the Nigerian question than anybody. Everything you've seen there are a product of my own thinking, not any kind of consultant stuff that people do, which they can't even defend. However, I'd say that the core focus of our campaign in ANRP and my campaign as a presidential candidate is basically focused on the core issues. You know, we're thinking of aspects of you know, how do we reposition the educational sector in a way that is going to impact on other sectors of the economy. So it's a kind of systems thinking is what we're using. You know, so we're thinking education, we're thinking environment, we're big on environment in a way that is not only going to be creating jobs, but also repositioning the minds of our people, which has been beaten down right now, not only with the weaponization of poverty, but with everything, because what the leadership we have had over the years and over the decades is such that has not actually positioned Nigerians to think in an elevated manner, has not elevated our humanity in any respect. You know, so basically, perhaps as we go on, we'll be able to go into the details of the manifesto. But any serious candidate now should be thinking for Nigeria across the board. You can't take only one aspect and say this is what you're going to do. And again, you should also understand that, you know, one sector affects every other sector, and we have to maximize the systemic value of what we're doing.
But you see, if you are proposing to do everything, because if you take the issues one by one, you seem to have an idea about what you want to do in virtually every aspect of our lives. But won't that result in big government, big governance? If you were to prioritize, what are those trigger areas, sectors, apart from education, which you have mentioned now?
Okay, so basically we're looking at, you know, we're looking at the security sector. Because you need to be safe in order for the economy to grow. But the way we're looking at the security sector is to look at the potentials for employment in that sector. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that will secure this country are the youth of this country. If you create the jobs for them in the security sector, in light security and all of that, then they will secure the environment and they will be able to gather intelligence for you. We're looking at, again, like I said before, the environmental sector, massive. The environmental sector is the only place where we can have sustainable employment for 1 million to 2 million people in this country. We're looking at of course, the educational sector, as I said before, but what we're thinking about in the educational sector, apart from taking serious the universal basic education, which is absolutely important. 13.2 million children on the street, totally unacceptable. When you have that kind of numbers on the street, which is the highest in the world, you have actually mortgaged your country, for 2 lifetimes or 3 lifetimes. However, for the tertiary education, we have a fantastic idea that by now, the people that should be building this country infrastructure-wise are our students in the universities and polytechnics. For example, students in civil engineering departments should begin to build roads, starting from within their campus. I've seen reports in the newspaper where vice chancellors are complaining that they don't have roads and they're going to award one big contract in the campus. And you have a civil engineering department. Why can't you pay these students a little bit of money? Let them go and experiment. Why can't the government actually get construction firms to mentor these children? And in a way, they begin to get experience while they're in university. The same engineering, like electrical engineering, can reposition what's called our electricity sector by going to the nearest village near them, doing their project, which also counts for them, but also getting paid a stipend. And even students of history and sociology, anthropology, can be useful in documenting the little histories of different settlements around them, and also our dying languages. And the students in IT should be the ones putting that stuff on the internet. We can create a Google that will have Nigerian information, all of these informations that we're losing. And our last key point is public sector repositioning. You have said that, big government. The truth is we have no government in Nigeria. Dr. Abati, we have no government in Nigeria. We have no public service in Nigeria. Our public service is actually quite small, and I think I've said it to you before. We have 3% of our workforce in the public service. We actually have no understanding of what a public service can do. The other day, someone shared something about the United Kingdom. In London alone, they have 14 teaching hospitals in London alone. And in Lagos, they have 2 teaching hospitals, Lasuth and Luz. London has a population of 9 million. Lagos has a population of anything between 20 million or 21 million, thereabouts, And of course, you see, and the person was complaining about the medical services in Nigeria being overstretched. But what I saw was our refusal to invest in our own public service, because our president will go abroad to treat himself in the same London. The money he spent should have been used to build a few more hospitals here, or to equip them, or to pay their staff better, or to encourage them one way or the other. So you can see the way we shoot ourselves in the leg. So we actually don't have a public service here. What we should be doing, the same UK we're talking about has 20% of its workforce working for government, and we have only 3%. That means we also don't understand that we need to provide public goods for our people.
If I may just come in here. Now, we have had all of these things before. And looking at your document, some of the things you are saying are also more or less the same things that other candidates are saying, maybe in a different, in a different manner, but more or less the substance is the same. So I guess somebody listening to you will be interested in how. Take, for example, your proposal of a new tax system. The PDP presidential candidate is talking about reducing corporate tax. I see you have something like that. Now, and you paid a lot of attention to that new tax system. How do you want to deal with that? And what kind of incentives will you provide for small and medium scale enterprises in various sectors, including agriculture?
Let me say quickly that the things I say, you won't hear it from many of the other candidates. Again, I repeat, the idea on repositioning education that I'm bringing forward is not about just increasing the allocation to education in the budget. Even though our budget is dismal, I'm the only candidate on the streets right now actually protesting our dismal budgeting system, which only favors 18,000 big men, civil servants and politicians, who are sitting on this economy and spending almost 50% or more of our budget, of the budget for 190 million people. You're not going to hear that repositioning of the educational sector from any of them, and as well as other things that I'm about to say. So regarding how do we fund this, for example, which I reckon is what you're talking about, or even our tax system. Let's talk about our tax system. I will not mention the candidates of the PDP. Of course, one of the things I put in my proposal is we can actually reduce company income tax, and we can give a lot of rebates in some very key sector, for example, the textile textile sector, which I see that this government is now trying to do. They've put it in the Gazette recently. I wondered why we waited this long to reposition our textile sector, because in Rwanda alone, Rwanda actually increased the tariff on used clothes from 20 cents a kilogram to $2.50, and they were sanctioned by Donald Trump. And they were taken out of the AGOA, which is the African Goods and Opportunities Act. But Kagame is standing his ground. Nigeria is the one that should be doing that, because Kagame said, listen, we need to reposition our textile sector. How can we have 190 million people who can't even clothe themselves? We can hardly feed ourselves. We can hardly clothe us. We can't even house ourselves. There's been no provision for housing for people in the rural areas of this country since 1960, as if they are not part of this country, as if they are not citizens of this country. So in terms of taxes, we are neglecting several taxes. For example, capital gains tax is suboptimized in this country. When you raise the issue with some of our tax people, they say it's so difficult to collect. The fact that it's difficult to collect doesn't mean you can't collect it. Things like the inheritance tax. I was in a meeting with, in a certain show with the former Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, at which he was saying that, you know what will happen if we introduce inheritance tax? Is it in the statute book? Yes, it is. These are taxes we inherited from even the colonial guys when they were living. And this is a very good tax that can be used to curb corruption, because people are corrupt, and when they die, they leave their corrupt proceeds to their children. You have to take a little bit of that as a state, and that's how it's done. And not only that, let me say, sir, that there's a way that countries around the world who are successful have been able to get their taxes in. On company income tax alone, we can double and triple that if they were ready to do the job. The simple thing they do abroad, and I'm used to the UK, I'm used to the UAE, I've done businesses in these places more than this. So in terms of doing business, some of these guys that are saying they are big in business, they are only local champions. Let me tell you what they do. In the UK, what they do is that the company house, which is our own CAC, you have to have your company house renewal every year before you can run a business in the UK. However, the company house will not give you a renewal of your annual returns except you bring an income tax report. You have to bring your tax certificate, and on that basis, they will issue you an annual return. And your regulator in your industry must always see your returns. Here, they have deliberately bastardized every scenario. They have ensured that nothing can be regulated. Regulators are only accomplices to crime, and therefore, so in the UK, they would ensure that the company house is tied with Her Majesty Revenue and Customs, and and also your bank. In the UAE, if you don't renew your license every year, you can't operate a bank account. And here we are, go to CAC. Maybe 20% or 15% of the companies that are registered in CAC actually get a company returns. And when you go to CAC, you pay them 3,000 naira, and you get your company returns, for those who even bother. And those who bother are the ones that are looking for government contracts, right? But if you ensure that any company cannot be run, you can't run a company account in this country, therefore, the onus is on the banks. And I trust that if you move that onus and move that burden to the bank MDs will ensure that the right thing is done, especially if they know that you're going to sanction them for not doing the right thing. We can triple it in this country. Again, we are making less in taxes. Okay, but just a quick one. 2013 was our best year in income tax. Not only income, in tax generation in this country. FRS made 5.007 trillion that year. This year they've made 4.3 trillion. Last year they made 4.3 trillion. Year before they made 4.0 trillion. 2015 they made 3.7 trillion. We're going down in taxes, and this is a country where we have actually devalued the currency, meaning that what we're getting today is half of what we got in 2013. That is why this country is broken. The economy is broken. We're going back into a recession. As a matter of fact, if you think about it economically, we are actually in a depression. So, Dr. Abati, the things that the way I speak about it is not the run of the mill. Well, it's not the normal thing you're going to hear from a lot of these guys.
Mr. Fashua, I'm very keen on security, and when I look at your manifesto, you talk a lot about engaging young people, young Nigerians. However, very laudable the plans you have, but how practicable? First, are young Nigerians interested in being a part of the security apparatus? Is it viable for them? Do you think that's the problem we have? Some will argue that the fundamental problem there is the equipment these people don't have, the remuneration for them. How did you conclude that young Nigerians would be the one to change the security problems that we have?
Well, it's because you look at there are two types of security issues. You can broadly categorize into internal security, external security. You can put in things like Boko Haram in external security because we know how that happened. You know, it was Mohammed Yusuf and a couple of people, you know, running riots in some parts of northern Nigeria. But before we knew it, they said that a lot of ammunition came in from Libya. And I believe that a lot of people came in from there who traumatized this country. I live in Abuja here, which has been hit about 4, 5, or 6 times. And every time that happens, these people disappear into thin air. We don't see them. Meaning that external security issue is an intelligence problem. If your intelligence is dead, then you can't do anything there. So therefore, that's an intelligence problem. And in order to tighten your intelligence, you need street intelligence. And again, mind you, that Boko Haram problem, the reason why it's receded today is also partly due to what they call the civilian JTF. In Maiduguri and environs, the youth of those places, they came out, they risked their lives. They took up arms against these guys. They stood up to it. You know, it's not only about this. Listen, I've also interacted with some soldiers, you know, that are my friends, and they've told me part of what's going on in those places. A lot of the problem we have is basically business. And you know what happened when, with some of the service chiefs that have gone, who have not been retired. We saw how they were just generally diverting the funds into their own private coffers. Why they put these boys in jeopardy? So I personally will not say that the only problem we have is in terms of equipment. Remember that President Buhari has given America $500 million in advance for 2 years for the support for the supply of Tucano aircraft. You know, it's pathetic that we cannot even protect ourselves. I said somewhere yesterday, if a world war happened today and every country went crazy, this country can easily be taken out by Cameroon, Niger, or Chad, or Benin Republic. And mind you that all our neighbors are actually French-speaking people, you know, and they have no allegiance to us, so to speak, you know. So that's one. But in terms of the internal security, where you have things like kidnapping, armed robbery, you know, snatching, all of this stuff, you know, this is because you have not engaged your youth. And mind you, you know, we are not going to solve only economic problems in this country. Before you can solve the economic issues, you have to also look at the behavioral issues. You have to look at the social psychological issues as well. Therefore, you can see in my manifesto even the things that we want to do in terms of repositioning the minds of our people. DIY, for example, we need to be a DIY country. We have to be a country where we'd like to do things ourselves. We have to protect ourselves. We have the Fetch initiative, meaning that we have to feed ourselves. We have to ensure our own security. We have to tidy up after ourselves. All right, this is massive. You know, we have to clothe ourselves and we have to house ourselves, and then we have to reposition our minds. A kind of behavioral change must come before you can, you know, achieve the economic change. So, but I think basically and very importantly, engaging the youth of this country is very critical to solving the security problem of this country.
Well, see, this is the problem I have with the manifesto. You know, the expansive nature of the content. For example, you are saying as president, you are also going to worry about maintenance culture, introduce a new maintenance culture in Nigeria. Shouldn't that be routine? You are also saying you are going to get the states to be productive. In a federal system, shouldn't the states make their own choices and develop at their own pace?
No.
And then you haven't answered the question earlier about small and medium-scale enterprises in various sectors, including agriculture.
Let me say for agriculture that the sustainable solution to agriculture, okay, actually is when our science makes it into agriculture, meaning that the academia must see our farms, all right? So there was recently a research done by a professor in University of Agric in Abeokuta. She did that research on a Nigerian chicken that's going to be a Nigerianized chicken. I don't know what the attributes were, for 24 years, and she was ignored. And she just concluded this research in 24 years. And in fact, since that announcement was made, I've not seen it echoed anywhere that there's a new Nigerian chicken that would not probably, maybe won't die very easily, or maybe it's strong, whatever, you know. Nothing has been said. So until the academia meets it, listen, Dr. Bati, University of Ibadan was formed 70 years ago. And here we are. That's the first university in Nigeria. Here we are. We can't even help ourselves, even to save our own lives. Nigeria is such a vulnerable country. We're basically moving around the world, begging them to give us things. Meanwhile, we're very profligate. A country that borrows money and borrows for every living thing under the sun. And however, it's also the country where the public officers are largessing all over the place, living in the best hotels abroad. They never stay on seat. When I was out demonstrating, I saw a scenario where neither the Minister of Budget nor the Minister of Finance nor their PAMSECs, none of them were in the country. Doctor has a disdain for this country. However, what our problems are telling us is one thing and one thing only, that now is the time for you guys to sit down and solve your own problems. So regarding, that's as for agriculture, until agriculture makes it, because look, Netherlands is the second highest agri exporting countries. Netherlands is 2/3 of Niger State, 41,000 square meters. Niger State is over 60,000 square meters. And Netherlands export about $120 billion. $120 billion worth of agricultural products every year. Our national budget that 190 million of us are fighting over is $25 billion. So you can see just the disparity. The United States, of course, is the highest agri-exporting country. So what I believe that the thing about agri is, first of all, ensure that we feed ourselves. We should not be a country suffering from malnutrition. When you see almost 90 million people in abject poverty, meaning they can't even feed themselves. So the first thing you must do before you begin to talk about agri-export is to be able to feed yourselves. That's my take on agri. And in terms of SMEs, I believe very strong. I'm going to say this, you probably won't know anywhere else, but we have an overdrive of entrepreneurship already. Nigeria is already a very entrepreneurial country because everybody goes out, everybody's on their own. I'm saying to you that 17% of the workforce in the U.S. is employed by the government of the United States of America. The biggest employer of labor in the U.S. is the United States Department of Defense. In the U.K., 20% of workforce, meaning that people who can work from age 18 to maybe 65 or 70, 20% of such are employed by the government. The biggest employer in the UK is the NHS, National Health Service, which treats our big men when they go there to the same structure that treats them. And we pour money into those things as well from this country. You know, and here we are, we employ 3%, meaning that most Nigerians wake up every morning, they're on their own, they're busy walking around the street. And now there's this rhetoric about entrepreneurship, which again is actually activating a sort of greedy button in our people. Everybody is out there shoving something in your face. And if it was things that we produced, it would have been better. But even our music, even our Nollywood that we are very proud about, okay, most of the content is foreign. How many cameras have been made in Nigeria that you can use to shoot a film?
All right, Mr.
How many
Fashua.
ideas have we get? How many special effects are made in Nigeria? So, but lastly, let me say this. In terms of taking on, the reason why I'm not running for state governorship or Senate is because the real problem with this country is with the visioning from the center, all right? And we need to begin to be able to affect, all right, thinking at that level. Environment is massive. If the states were doing it, we would not be in this problem we are. Up till now, almost 1 million Nigerians are in IDP camps as a result of environmental displacement. And so this is a national issue. In India, they have prioritized that, and the PM of India, Narendra Modi, is the one driving the process himself. And that's why India is growing at 8%, 8.5%. As we speak right now.
All right, Mr. Fashua, I think we can all agree that your manifesto is quite ambitious, and I must commend most of your initiative. But can you really say that you have the political structure to win this election?
Right, okay, first of all, is to say there are two ways of winning. Either I go around the country, if we had the time. One of the problems we have as candidates is that we have 90 days to do all the work. But, you know, subtly, anybody that wants to run should have started some groundwork, and I've started that quite a while ago. And we have a political party, ANRP, which we are, basing all of this structure on, And mind you, I'm not the only one running in the party. We have state governors, candidates as well. We have senatorial, we have House of Reps, we have House of Assembly. We have all sorts of great people out there in the space who are doing their own work and, also increasing the visibility of the party. That's one way of winning. So, however, while that is going on, and that's part of why I'm here, and I want to thank Arise TV for bringing me on, because look, we can't afford to pay if we have to pay, and I'm saying this, you brought me here for free, if we asked me to pay, I probably wouldn't be able to find the money. all right, because I'm not a billionaire. And many of the people who call themselves billionaires in this country, and you check it, you find that they've based it on fraud or one way or the other, or stolen from the government. You know, so that's that. So, but the other way of winning is to ensure that you can win in installment. Your ideas can win. I'm on the streets, as I spoke to you about a week ago. I was on the streets demonstrating because they are reducing the budget for next year. We're moving from 9.1 trillion to 8.6 trillion. And I'm asking government one simple question. You know, population is growing at 3.2%, meaning that about 6 million people are added to the mouths that the government needs to provide for every year. And inflation is eating the value of money at 11.28%. So on what basis are they reducing the budget for next year? I've seen a report also where they are reducing the expectation of revenue from the MDAs from 800 billion to 600 billion.
Okay, I need to ask you this question before we run out of time. I need to ask you this question. Okay. Have you had the time to take a look at the next level document presented by President Buhari, the APC presidential candidate, and then the other policy document presented by presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar? And if you have had the opportunity of looking at their documents or studying the details, what do you think? What is it that you think they are bringing to the table that you probably have not thought of?
Well, I don't think there's anything the next level is bringing that I've not thought of. Again, a next level that's reducing the budget for next year. What next level is that? Look, if you are reducing a budget of a country, you're thinking of, to the extent that they are justifying a reduction in the performance of MDAs, to say that, look, we expected 800 billion from you before, don't worry, go and give us 600 billion. These are guys that make the money and put it in their pockets, right? And as a result of part of my advocacy, however, I note that the Minister of Budget also sent out a memo that they will not be accommodating these unnecessary and lavish purchases of SUVs that they do, you know, in next year's budget. But why did they do it for 3 years of their governance? Why are we budgeting for those things? So there's nothing in next level. But in terms of the, and again, we're going to keep on that. We want them to increase the budget of this country to 15 trillion by next year, and we can find the money. I've written a petition to them. I've noted and I've pointed them to where this money can be found, if only they were serious. And we're going to stick to that. And we're just being lenient to them for telling them to go get 15 trillion. I mean, South Africa is budgeting $155 billion, and here we are budgeting $25 billion. Angola is budgeting $50 billion. Here we are budgeting $25 billion. You know, Egypt, $68 billion. Algeria, $60 billion. And a dollar is a dollar. Do you know, according to my fellow contestant, you know, who were somewhere at Donald Duke, that between 1979 and 1983, Shagari budgeted an equivalent of $25 billion. And here we are, how many years after, in 2018, we're still budgeting $25 billion. And most of the money now, corruption has increased and all of that. So regarding the other document from the PDP candidate, what I saw was he was just actually pandering to what he wants, he believes that some people want to hear. I mean, we're talking of crass capitalism here. You want to privatize all privatizables. You want to sell NNPC, you know, 90%. What gave him that? Why is the analysis that says that 90% of NNPC is what needs to be sold? He's talking about 15% growth of the economy, but he's also talking of reduced inflation. You don't understand that growth, if you want to have a double-digit growth, then inflation has to go. You can't have a single-digit inflation. You know, because the cost of that much activity and the many jobs you are going to create and all of that buzz that will be generated by double-digit growth is that inflation has to go somehow. You know, so here, I mean, I even saw where he said he will now let inflation go up if he can bring in FDI. No, you don't allow inflation to go up because of foreign investment. No, you can only allow inflation to go up because of growth. But so I saw a lot of pandering to the fact that he believes that that's what maybe those of the people he's trying to convince to support him, Western capitalism countries and so on, that's what they want to hear about. We have gone past that. That is old economics. It's the third economics. The point where we are right now is a point of common sense. Use your own thinking. Think about what works for your people. If you have 90 million people out there, you cannot tell them to go to market forces and go and sort themselves out. It will not work. Now is the time for real governance, and that's why people like us are involved. I'm here to ensure that all of them think. And if we had not done the kind of things we are doing, these guys would even come out with the documents that they've come out with before. It used to just be a case of promise a few things here and mesmerize the people and get it. We're going to make the work a lot more difficult for them this time around.
Okay, and that's a fantastic note to end this conversation. Mr. Tokwe Fashua, the presidential candidate of the Abundant Nigerian Renewal Party. Many thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Your thoughts. Yes, it's time now for
Thank
a
you
short
so much.
break.
Thanks for bringing me.